Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the host of the program and the owner broker of Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, most people selling a home have some very different ideas of their home's value. Some believe that they should price it at the top of the price range. Others want a quick sale, and others just have no idea. How does a home seller price their home to negotiate the very best price?
Well, Richard, it's usually not what people think. I would say a majority of people think, I want the most money. Why can't I price it higher for negotiating room? But that's a mistake if it's higher than market value, because now the buyers have gotten very well educated at what they're looking for. So if they go up and look on Zillow or Realtor.com or Homes.com, those websites, which is where most of the buyers are looking, have all the values around the home. So it will stand out if it's priced too high or too low. And so how does a home seller even know what the best price is? You have to sit down with a professional and really figure out, okay, what do I have that's special? Do I have a great location? I talked to a seller yesterday that has a really cool house up in Teller County that backs to national forest. That's definitely adds value. What's the market like right now? If the biggest shock I have seen over the past probably year and a half is that a majority of the agents never saw a down market. We have an 87% turnover in the number of real estate agents every 5 years. So if you go back 5 years, the market was flying high, watching the clouds go by. Things were bidding up, way over asking price. It was easy if you were a seller, you just put it on the market and go, my house sold in 3 hours for 150,000 over asking price, which is great, except that's not this market right now. What's the age of the home? Now, that may not matter if it's been updated, but what if it's not been updated? You could have two homes the same age and one has been updated, one has not. And right now in this market, the buyers expect it. They want the home to be updated. But if they don't get it, that's fine as long as it's priced right. So all these factors kind of work together. What improvements you've done, what area you are in. There's a lot of factors involved with it. And you really can't rely on those Zillow's estimates. Did you know, Richard, that the CEO of Zillow, when he sold his house, it sold for 500,000 less than his Zillow's estimate? Did you know that?
Awkward instant for him. That's not a good look at all. But I'm not shocked because you try to make sure that you've always got a handle on the market and it's always changing.
Yeah, it's always changing. And you have to really be aware of it. And not everybody, not every real estate professional is really tracking what the market is doing. And I will tell you, I didn't when I was a rookie and kind of new to the business. I didn't know how to do it, but now I do. And you really can't rely on those zestimates of value or online valuations because they're not even close. Sometimes they're too high and sometimes they're too low. You never know. And I have a lot of people tell me, well, Zillow says my house is worth this, but it doesn't have all my square footage, or if I've got 4 bedrooms, not 3, that kind of stuff. Zillow is grabbing any kind of data that they can get and they're putting it out there and providing their estimate, which they call as estimate of value based on the average of the home sales around that home. And their objective is not to be accurate about their values. Their objective is to get buyers to ask about seeing that house, and then they sell that buyer lead to real estate agents that pay by zip code to get buyer leads. And what do the buyers want to do? They want to go to the house. They don't want the agent. They want the agent to open the door, and that's it. So some things can add value, like views, a nice yard, nice improvements. I've got one house right now that's really a total fixer-upper in Teller County, and I get calls on that home every single day, even though it's been under contract for quite some time. because it was priced very realistically. If you look at the inside pictures, you can see kind of smoke damage on the walls. The plumbing doesn't work right, but that one had a bidding war, is under contract for way over asking price. And I've got a list of buyers that want in if that one doesn't go through. So it's all about pricing and positioning, but we did a good job of creating demand with marketing as well. And you can't always rely on what your neighbor's home sold for. Square footage, according to appraisers, is the key part of value. So the more square footage, the more value, right? But they also factor in condition, views, floor plans, improvements. I've seen some homes that have been completely redone with these modern designs and blowing out walls and stuff like that. And to a point, it will typically sell for more money if it is what they call turnkey, meaning move in, drop your stuff, and get on with your life. But at the end of the day, the real opinion of value comes from what the buyer is willing to pay. Now, a lot of people say, well, it appraised for this much. Why can't I price it at the appraised amount? Well, an appraisal is an opinion of value by a licensed professional who looks at similar sales. Similar meaning the key word, it has to be same kind of floor plan, plus or minus 20% in size. They can adjust for bedrooms, baths, and garage spaces, but basically they have to compare apples to apples, okay? So an appraiser can give an opinion of value, but that doesn't necessarily mean the buyer is going to pay that amount, right? What we use appraisals for is to substantiate to the lender, if the buyer is getting a loan, that the home is worth what they agreed to pay for. Okay. And we know how to do that. We actually, love on appraisers as much as we can because they help us get to the finish line. So when you're defining home value, you really have to look at a lot of things: similar sales, number of available homes, what are the market trends? There's all kinds of things to look at. How does it compare to the competition in terms of what it looks like? And so it's important to get an expert that knows the market, sells in that market, understands the trends, and much of that data is not on Zillow. All right, so let's talk about negotiating. This is where I have a lot of fun. And we've talked about this before, Richard, where in your world, when you were a lawyer, there was very little training on negotiations. Is that true?
Virtually none, almost exactly zero. And yet, it's one of the most important things you do as an attorney, and you do it very, very frequently.
Yeah. So same for real estate. I mean, you can get some training out there, kind of, but the people that are teaching real estate classes don't sell many homes. And so what do they know about negotiating? It has to be somebody that actually is actively selling homes to be able to help you with these things if you don't do this very often. So in general, if you price a home too high in a buyer's market, guess what? The buyers aren't going to show up. They're going to tell you immediately out of the gate, it's priced too high. All sellers want the most money, and all buyers want the best home in their price range. And most buyers will search in a general price range, so they pretty much know the market in that price range, and they can detect a deal a mile away. That's why it's very important to price a home what I call realistically versus optimistically. I look at this slide right now. It's kind of funny about you want people in any negotiation to feel like they have won. But just a few weeks ago, I got an offer from an agent that was below asking price by far, asking for the seller to pay the buyer's closing cost and asking for a new roof too, just because it was more than 10 years old. And she caveated that with, but we want to do a win-win negotiation. Oh, by the way, she wanted 3% commission as well. And I'm like, no, that's not win-win. I just called her out on it. It's win-lose. There's nothing in there to help the seller. And so anyway, she went away. Her buyer didn't get the house. But as a home seller, if you do get a low offer, it might be a good idea not to take out and kill the messenger and be all offended about it. Sometimes the agents are telling the buyers to test the water. They know we're leaning towards a buyer's market, right? So the agents are in the game trying to push the buyer to say, oh, I'm a master of the real estate universe and you should offer 100,000 below asking price. And they do it. They do it all the time. I just had it done on one of my listings and the seller just laughed and said, no, that's a no. And then she came back 50,000 below asking. Seller's like, nope, still a no. And then finally, about a week later, they came back at full price. Well, this is the right house for my buyer. And I'm thinking, oh, why did you do that? In that time frame, another buyer could have gotten in there and grabbed the house. It's so stupid for an agent to get in the way of their buyer getting the house. So they absolutely do encourage buyers to make low offers, right? And it's very discouraging. Now, if they make a good offer and ask for some concessions, we can work with that. That's not so offensive. But if they do ask for closing costs and you don't want to pay it, you can always go up in price to cover their cash problem. It's not a big deal. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about some common negotiating mistakes and how to avoid them. And when we come back, we're going to hit on a couple more stories and a couple more tips to help you win when you're negotiating the sale of your home. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice. That's Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. You can always reach her at 719-301-3900. So, Barb, what are some other things that a home seller can do to properly negotiate that home for sale?
Well, don't expect a bidding war and try not to be emotional too when you're negotiating. It is a business transaction. Although people can't help it, right? They live in the home. They love the home. They want their buyer to love the home, right? So, but there are a few times when you get multiple offers, and that is like the best time for sellers, except for one. I had one seller when I sat down with him with 6 offers. I said, "Isn't this fun?" And he goes, "No." And I was so shocked. He was an ex-Marine infantry officer. And I said, "No, you don't think this is fun?" He looked at me, he goes, "Barb, I told you I wanted the most money. I want to know how you're going to get me the most money." So I did. I figured it out. I played mom against dad, drove the price up, and he got the best contract. And so it's really fun if you have a bidding war when it happens. But one thing that surprised me, I just had one the weekend before last, when I let all the agents know, hey, we've got multiple offers, so bring your best and highest offer. The seller might respond over the weekend, but probably won't happen till Monday because they're in another state. So, Richard, what does that mean to you? Does best and highest mean something that makes sense? Is that confusing?
Well, I think the average person who doesn't know much or listen to this program might think, well, yeah, you go real high and that's what we do. We negotiate down. But you have a common sense approach that is based on decades of experience. And the ultimate end of the game is you want the most money for you and for your client.
Yeah, of course. And also, if you're representing a buyer, the buyer wants the house, right? So help your buyer get the house, right? You don't tell the buyer, "Oh, just go ahead and ask for whatever you want. Don't worry, the seller will counter." Not when you have competition. All bets are off. And so I have a phrase that I use with my buyers that indicates to them that, hey, make whatever your best offer is. And if you're okay with somebody bidding higher than that, it's fine. Just let it go. We'll find another home. But a lot of people kind of hold back for future negotiations, expecting that it's going to happen, and it may not. I had just that weekend, I had one of those 3 buyers that made an offer. Their agent asked me to show her the other offers so her buyer could get the house. I think that's kind of not ethical. I said, I can't really do that. So at the end of the day, the way you make this happen where you're in the best negotiating position as a seller is absolutely to price the home what I call realistically versus optimistically. Then you have more choices. Then you're able to pick the best buyer and make the most money. So if you are thinking of making a move, this is what we do week in, week out. We negotiate real estate deals. And if you'd like to have us talk to you about how we help people get their homes ready for sale, show you our list of buyers, show you our list of cash offers, help you decide on where to price the home, give us a call at 719-301-3900. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. She should be your voice. And if you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. A short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing how to estimate what a house will sell for in Colorado right now.